Okay, my name's Matt Griffing, and I'm going to be presenting on the star paper from my master's portfolio. So, although Irish modernist poets and playwrights like W.B. Yeats and Lady Gregory were actively involved in the process of, quote, reviving the myths, place names, and consciousness of Ireland's pre-colonial past, as well as presenting the traditional heroes and heroines of the Irish epics as models of Irish character, there is a conspicuous lack of reference to the myths of Celtic Ireland in James Joyce's earlier stories and novels. His writings frequently contain explicit allusions to mythological figures and themes while depicting Irish culture and individuals, but they do so primarily using the tropes and characters of Greek and Roman literature, like Daedalus or the Voyages of Ulysses. It seems upon a cursory glance that Joyce simply rejects the use of his native mythic tradition, perhaps out of a frustration with an Ireland too absorbed in its own past to move into the future. However, in reality, Joyce maintains a more sophisticated relationship with Irish myth than many of his contemporaries, and there is one particular Irish myth that subtly resonates within a handful of scenes in Joyce's stories. Both Evelyn and the pivotal scene with the bird girl at the beach from A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man employ multiple images from the fate of the children of Lear. Though the mythic archetypes are not explicit within either story, the connections between the fate of the children of Lear and these scenes help clarify the ways that Irish identity is constrained by religious hierarchy and cultural narratives in Joyce's work, and also illustrate how personal artistic endeavors can deconstruct and challenge pervasive societal myths, giving artists the ability to fly by those nets of nationality, language, and religion. Though Joyce has been typically viewed as being diametrically opposed to the Irish revival in his earlier works, I find that these works actually constitute a more nuanced critique of revivalist techniques, in which Joyce indicates how an Irish artist can still engage with Irish mythology without simply repeating and reinforcing destructive cultural narratives. While revivalists like Yeats and Gregory often retold ancient and medieval myths from a quasi-religious perspective, celebrating Ireland's pagan past and divorcing their stories from the Catholic culture in which they were preserved, Joyce's allusions to the fate of the children of Lear constitute a more critical approach to Irish myth, as they identify the ways in which myth and the church work together to limit Irish identity. This particular myth details the adventures of a young girl, Finola, and her younger brothers who are cursed by a wicked stepmother to live as swans upon the sea for 900 years, until the first Christian bells ring in Ireland and they are able to return to their native soil and their human forms. Traditionally, this myth is seen as symbolizing the humanizing effect that the Catholic Church has had on Irish history, but Joyce utilizes the tropes and images from this myth to critique the Church's paralyzing influence on Irish identity. In Evelyn, this allusion is most obvious at the story's climax, when Evelyn stands on the Dublin docks, torn between remaining in her native land, where she can expect nothing but abuse from her father, and casting herself to the sea with Frank, who offers her the possibility of escaping that fate. However, at the moment Evelyn must make a choice, she is paralyzed, and she set her white face to Frank, passive, like a helpless animal, or a swan. Joyce delineates the moment at which Evelyn is drawn away from Frank and back to her home when he writes that a bell clanged upon her heart, much like those bells which drew Finola back to Ireland from the sea. By subverting the image of the Christian bells, Joyce is not only able to critique the influence the Church has had on Irish identity, but is also able to demonstrate the effects of propagating uncomplicated cultural narratives. Finola, Evelyn's mother, and the St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, who all appear in the story, present models of female identity in Irish culture, limiting Evelyn's opportunities for freedom, as demonstrated through the myths and culture. If Evelyn demonstrates the negative influences that cultural myths and religious dogma have on Irish identity, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man constitutes Joyce's solution to the problem. Ultimately, Joyce presents the role of the ideal Irish artist as one who deconstructs dominant myths and uses his own artistic skill to create new models of Irish identity. In his final epiphanic moment in the novel, Stephen Dedalus witnesses a girl at the beach who, through his artistic imagination, seemed like one whom magic had changed into the likeness of a strange and beautiful seabird. Here, Stephen is able to use the Celtic image of the girl turned into a swan and reinterpret it so that the bird girl serves as an image of freedom, encouraging him to escape his own stagnant situation. Stephen witnesses the bird girl stirring the water with her foot, and the first faint noise of the gently moving water broke the silence, low and faint and whispering, faint as the bells of sleep. Bells which call him to the sea in foreign lands rather than calling him back to Ireland. Stephen's power as an artist lies not in his ability to simply utilize Celtic imagery, but in his ability to complicate those images, taking them from the realms of myth and religion, and utilizing them to reshape his own sense of identity. The ideal Irish artist must draw from the same tools as the revivalists, but has an obligation to challenge and recontextualize them for the modern era.